हेलो बच्चे लोग तो कैसे हो आप लोग। आई एम अभिनंदन over here, your coding buddy. So let's start our journey in Python. So I'm from iFutureTech, designing your future. So if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to the channel and watch the previous videos which have been already uploaded on my channel about the Python, like how to install the Python and how to run your first program in Python environment, and what are the different ways available for running these Python course. Okay, so I hope you will see those previous videos and have no difficulties in understanding the further concepts. So let's start with the further concepts, and I'll be handling today what is reserve words. So reserve words, you might have seen it in a many different programming languages like C, Java, or any other programming languages you take. There are reserve words. Now, what are these reserve words? Or also, these are called as a keywords. So, what are these reserve words? These reserve words, you cannot use them as uh, constants, variables, or any of the identifiers in any of the programming language, not just a Python, but any of the programming language, you cannot use them as identifiers. So following are the reserved keywords which have been reserved by the Python interpreter. You need not to by heart these things, because as you go on with the programming, you will be understanding what are these reserved words and what are the meaning of this. Like exactly what are these means, whatever the reserved words you can see it over here. The meaning of those reserved words will be already known to the interpreter, and interpreter will act according to the like code has been done for these particular reserve words. So meaning of these reserve words already known to the interpreter, and because of that you should not be using these reserve words as identifiers. Okay, so I hope you are clear with this topic, and let's move to the further topic called as a variables and data types. So as you might have seen it in other programming languages like the C program, where you have to also mention a data type explicitly before you mention a variable and a value. But here, as you know, the Python is the easiest programming language that we have it over here. So here you need not to worry about what type of a data you need to be using for storing a variable or declaring a variable. Here, just as simple as that, mention a variable name and have the value for that. So depending upon the value, Python interpreter will define or decide what type of a data it is. Like for an example, you can see it over here. So these are the variables we have already mentioned it. So also I have mentioned it for your better understanding. I have mentioned them here onto the screen. I'm using a Jupyter notebook, so you can use any other editor, whichever you have, which has been ideally provided by the Python or the PyChamp or the Spider, or you can use the Jupyter. Even you can use the VS Code. Use any of the platforms you want, but code. Okay, so let's go further and we'll see that key how many different types of variables I have mentioned over here. So this is a variable, one variable, this is another variable, this is another variable, and so on. Now you can see that key I haven't mentioned any of the data types before mentioning the variables. I have just mentioned the variables and I have stored the value inside that. So depending upon what type of a value you are going to store over here, the data type of this particular variable will be decided by the interpreter automatically. So I have stored integer over here, then float over here, then I have also stored a string in this case. I have stored a boolean, two boolean values over here, and a none value, that is null data type. I have used it over here, and we will speak about this in few minutes. Okay, so these are the different types of variables we have it. So what if you want to know what type of a data have what type of a data it is? That is nothing but what is the data type of these particular variables that you have already stored. So Python provides you with the provision that how to know the data type of particular variable. So it is very simple that you just have to mention, you have to use a keyword called as type, and inside the parenthesis mention whatever the variables you want. Okay, so I have used a different variables over here. Similarly, I have mentioned the types of those over here. So if you run this code, you can see it that if you see the first type of a spam is integer value, because I have directly stored a int value in this. Then I have a pi, which is storing a floating point over here. Then I have a company name, my company name over here, that is nothing but a string. Then the next one is boolean, that is truth is storing a true value similar to the false. You also it will give you the boolean value. Then I have null data type, that is none data type over here. And you can see that even if I am storing a single character over here, it is going to show me as a string, because Python don't have char data type, it has only a strings. So whatever you store it into single quotes, double quotes, triple quotes, let it be a single word or a sentence or a paragraph, it will be considered as a string only. Okay, so keep this in a mind. So let's dive to the further topic, which is nothing but the statements. So you can see it onto the screen that whatever we have written on one line is called as a statement. So that is nothing but, you can see Python statements are delimited by new lines, white spaces, or a colons. About the colons we'll be studying soon when we will study the concept of loopings or suits, or when we will be seeing the functions. Okay, so whenever you are providing any new line or a white space, that is nothing but a line containing a comment which will be ignored by the Python interpreter, or the colon, it will start with the new statements. Okay, so logical block of a code are delimited by the tab spaces. So we'll be seeing the indentations also in a further coming classes. Okay, so the next topic is the same thing, that is nothing but the lines and indentations. So here, as we have seen it in a previous classes, that is nothing but might be your C programming, where we see the braces to denote the start and end of your uh, code block. That might be a if statement, that might be your for loop, or the while loop, or the functions, or whatever it is. So in a like C program, it will be providing you with the braces to indicate the start and end. But here, as we know that in a Python there are no concept of a braces for indicating the start and end, and because of that we have to be depending upon the indentations. So indentations are the very most important part of Python, where if you don't use it something like this, like we'll see the example over here, like if you use it something like this, you are tossing white spaces anywhere you want, or you are not using the indentations, like you can see it onto the screen over here, where uh, you can see it over here. If I use it something like this without indentations after the colon, so we have used a colon which it creates a swoosh, and I have not used any indentation for this. As well as if you see this type of a code over here, for this also I have not used any of the indentations. So what will happen if you write it something like this? So if I run this code, you can see there is an indentation error. That means it expects an intended block. So you can see it over here also. If I run this type of a code also, you will see there is an indentation required. So what is the correct way of running, or a correct way of writing this? So whenever you write a colon, if you are using the interpreter, it is well and good, automatically it will take indentations. So if you are not using any of the IDs, then you have to give the indentations on yourself. That is explicitly you need to mention. Otherwise, it will be automatically taking the indentations. So let's see with this example also, where I have created the function. So I'll just do this backspace and enter. Automatically it is going to be indented blocks. So let's run this code first. If I run, yes, I'm getting the output now. If I run this code, yes, I'm getting the output of this code as well. So this is the function which I have created, and def is the keyword that I have to use to define the function at the beginning. And you can see that this is just a simple printf statement where I have called this spam function which we have created over here, where I have stored one variable I have printed that variable and written. So whatever the value I am returning from here, that will be written over here, and the value of E will be printed onto the screen. So this, you can see the output. So it means that indentations are the very important part of Python. Okay, so remember to indent your code properly. Okay, so let's move to the next topic called as comments. I have seen students ignoring this part, which is called as doc string, also a documentation section, which is very much essential whenever you are doing a proper coding. So why it is required means, consider if you have used any of the variables for today, and after some day you are not remembering what is this code or what exactly you have done in this part of a code, then your comments will help you at this moment. So every programming has this part that is nothing but comments, and it will allow you or others to view your code very easily. So there are two types of a comments which Python provides. One is your single line comment and another is your multi-line comment, similar what we can see it in other programming languages. But the way of commenting is different over here. For a single line comment, your Python uses a pond or a hash symbol. You can see it onto the screen over here. So it is used for the documentation purpose of the code. And as soon as your Python interpreter encounters with this kind of a thing, that is nothing but hash or any of the comment part, it just ignores it and goes to the next, uh, exactly the next statement what we have it over there. So it is always better to comment your code. So this is one example which I have already given over here, where I have created a function, and in that function, I have just written a comment part over here. Okay, so this part will be ignored by your interpreter. So let's move further and see the multi-line comments. Here, you can use a multiple hash on different lines, or if you don't want that, like it is kind of a waste of a time writing a hash symbol on each of the line. Like consider we have to comment a 15 line of a code, so that time it will create a problem. So because of that, you can use a triple quotes at the beginning and at the end, so automatically it will be commented. So this is another way to comment your code. Okay, so always keep commenting your code. So next part that we are going to see is docstring. It is just again a documentation part, like we have just seen it in a previous thing, that is triple quotes is going to give you a multi-line comment, so which we can use it whenever we are creating any of the functions. For those functions, we can create a multi-line comment, so it will be very helpful for understanding the code in a future, or it might help you even in a better way for others to understand what you have coded. Okay, so this is all, guys. So have a happy coding, and start coding. As soon as you start coding, you will start understanding, or you will start experiencing the different things. So happy coding, see you soon, stay connected.